Hey everyone, my name is Zach. I'm a 22-year-old competitive boulderer from Canada, currently living near Frankfurt, Germany. Welcome back to the COMPCLIMB training series, where I record all of my training, provide in-depth analysis of every session, and just chat about climbing with an emphasis on competition. So something I want to say before we get started with this video is kind of like something exciting that you can expect from this channel going forward, and that is daily videos. I think the way that me and Maddie are kind of like planning out our content is that it should be a rarity if you don't see a video every single day, which I think is pretty fun. What is going to happen is, as you can see, Maddie's back from breast month and she's starting to train again, and she's psyched to do some of her own COMPCLIMB series. And so she's thinking that she's going to do like 2 a week. So she'll film 2 of her training days a week, and that's going to be like her sweet spot for now. And meanwhile, I'm going to continue doing filming all of my training. And so my training I always train like 2 days on, 1 day off. So I train for 2 days and then I take a rest day, and that just keeps repeating. And so I've been also releasing my videos like this. I go 2 episodes, 2 days in a row, and then a day off without an episode. But now that Maddie is kind of like filling in the gap almost perfectly, it'll happen like the way our content will sort of be coming out is going to be Zach episode, Maddie episode, and then that 3-day sort of cycle will repeat with like maybe some other fun, like different sort of themed videos sprinkled in as well. Like sure, we do the COMPCLIMB series and that's sort of our main thing, but we have some other video ideas like coming up, which I think will be pretty exciting. So yeah, you can expect pretty much daily videos going forward. And then something else that I'm going to start doing before this episode starts is I'm going to be doing a program outline / breakdown at the beginning of every new training cycle. So obviously I just had a rest week and I'm back from rest week, and we're about to start our next training phase. And I'll just sort of like highlight and go through the training that you can expect for the next, this is going to be a 5-week cycle. And not only like is it the training that I'm about to be doing, but it's sort of like the program for the episode schedule. You know, you can kind of expect what content to be coming out. That being said, as I go through my training, you'll notice that I often like adjust sessions a little bit. So this won't be like when you're watching this video, this is like what I have planned. But that being said, we'll probably make some small adjustments as we sort of go through the program and actually do it. But yeah, let's check out the program a bit. I also got a comment like a couple days ago, sort of asking how I write my training program, and like it's the way that different people write programs. There's definitely like a lot of sort of opinions and ways to tackle writing training programs. Some people like will go super science based. Some people will go some people will have a coach, and some people will go sort of off personal experience. I'll definitely say that mine is more from personal experience. I've been climbing and training for like 15 plus years, and I have like a lot of experience to draw from, and that's sort of how I write my programs. That being said, I do like have a lot of science to back up what I'm doing, but I wouldn't necessarily be able to quote it to you. My default answer would just be kind of like, oh, I just do this because it works for me. And so you can always take sort of like my advice or the way I write my training with that in mind, that it's all sort of just my opinion. That being said, I only do things that I like because I think they work. So yeah, just keep that in mind. Let's just have a look at the program. I got my phone here. You can see it on the screen as well. We can just do like a quick little overview of the program. So right now we are about to start an endurance training cycle. And so when I say it's an endurance cycle, we're not going to be doing like endurance all the time. That'd be crazy. Like not every session is going to be endurance. That's just like sort of one session that we're going to add in, and that's sort of the theme of the cycle because we don't usually do endurance. So that's why I'm just kind of calling it the endurance cycle. That being said, in our first COMPCLIMB training series that I filmed, we were doing endurance, but we haven't done it yet since we've been in Germany. So I usually like to do endurance about like a month out from a sort of a target event, because I find I gain it fast, and then I also retain it for a while. So if I like do a bunch of endurance training now for like even just 5 weeks, that's going to be enough to help me perform at Canadian Nationals, which is at the end of November. And right now it's, what's the date? September 29th. So yeah, this is like, you know, almost 2 months out. Well, we'll be doing this like sort of like throughout the month, 1 month before the target event. And that's sort of like the sweet spot. And I find that I'll be able to hold that endurance to the event, and I should be more prepared like for my cardio, and just sort of like my exhaustion sort of capacity will be better and higher to compete. So yeah, basically how my training cycles work is they'll be about 3 to 5 weeks long, followed by a rest week. So this one's definitely a longer one. This is a 5-week training cycle followed by a 6-day rest week. And all my rest weeks are usually like 5-6 days. I feel like that's a pretty good number for me. And so what I'll do is every week is 6 days long for me. A training week for me is 6 days naturally, just because I do 2 days on, 1 day off. I do that twice, and that's a training week. So what I do is I create a 6-day sort of routine for my training cycle, and then I just repeat that. So this is a 5-week cycle. I'm gonna have my 6-day routine that I do 5 times. So let's find like sort of a pure training cycle. This is not interrupted by any events or anything. Obviously, if I have an event, I sort of have to adjust the training week to cater to it. But this here is sort of a week without any events, obviously. And so we can look at like what the pure training routine for this training cycle is gonna be. So this is an endurance cycle, but that being said, only 25% of the training we're gonna be doing is endurance training. So basically, this training cycle basically is like the same 2 days repeated. So like the first 2-day chunk is basically the same for the second 2-day chunk, except with one subtle difference that I'll highlight. So we start off, our first session of day 1 is gonna be a boulder session. You don't really need to pay too much attention to the locations of the gyms. I feel like that might change just like as it's kind of like a fluid process, obviously deciding what gym to go to on any given day. But that's sort of like my guesstimate of where I'll be going. So day 1, session 1 is a boulder session. I like to do boulder session first while I'm fresh. It's the most important session in my opinion. And then day 1, session 2 will be a spray wall session. We're gonna be doing our workout first on day 2 instead of the second session, which we've usually been doing recently. And that's just because the endurance session has to be last. I can't do any training after the endurance. It will just ruin it. And I can't do endurance on day 1 because day 2 will really be hindered. So we have to do the endurance session last, and that means that the workout has to be in the morning. So this is sort of our core this is sort of like these 2 days here in this order is sort of our core routine for this training cycle. And you can see the next 2 days are basically the same with the exception of campus. So we just switch our spray wall session for a campus session. And the nature of this just means like throughout the weeks, we sort of go spray wall as day 1, session 2, and then the next one is campus for session 1, session 2, and then we just alternate throughout all the weeks. So yeah, that's just kind of how that goes. And the way I write my training is I sort of like write it so I kind of go like left to right. Obviously, you can just see we have sort of the date column here, and then this is session 1 and this is session 2. That being said, I can do either of these sessions in either order that I want. This is just, I usually go left to right, and that's sort of like my recommended order, like I've mentioned previously. But if I'm just feeling like it on any given day, I can do spray wall session first if I want. It doesn't really matter. But usually I'll go left to right. But yeah, anyway, this sort of training week here is like the core routine for this training cycle, and that's what we're going to be repeating. And then we've got like sort of all these different locations that we'll be visiting with like a couple, there's like a couple days that are like sort of off the norm of the program, just because we'll be doing like a different kind of video or we have an event to prepare for. So let's like take a look here. We got like, for example, just here, I have to do like a 3-day block just to line it up with the days. Like I plan my days out way in advance in order to have like certain days being rest days to like line up with the comp. I had to fit like a 3-day cycle in here. So let's add like a little boulder session here, probably at Boulderhaus. And obviously here we got an event in Nuremberg called the Boulder Cup that we're gonna be doing, sort of like a fun local event. It should be fun. And then down here we have Boulder competition at Studio Bloc Mannheim, another sort of fun event. That being said, these like events are kind of just for fun, but we're in Germany and there's a lot of strong people, so they'll probably still be hard and like worth doing, and they'll be good for training too. And then we have some other sessions. Oh, here we got like a fun video, well, actually I won't talk too much about this video. We'll save that one for later. And then I think there's one more. Oh yes, here's a fun video we got coming up. So shortly after the Boulder Cup in Nuremberg, I've been talking with the setters at Studio Bloc, and they've sort of all have like seen the videos that we've been doing. And the head setter he's the head setter of both locations. He approached me and asked if we could do a video about setting. And I was so excited about that. That sounded like such a good idea. So on this day here, October 10th, we'll probably go and film like just a video with the setters. I think they're gonna set the comp at Studio Bloc Darmstadt, and we'll just do a video sort of highlighting that whole experience. It'll be fun. We'll see what comes of that. Like I have a kind of an idea of how the video will go, but I'll talk with Eric and see what's gonna happen. So it should be fun. And that's sort of like all the sort of hiccups just in the normal training routine. Other than that, yeah, it's kind of like this sort of 6-day block repeating. And then yeah, like I have mentioned in the past, this program is linked in the description of every video. It's a PDF if you're like curious and you wanna just like sort of study it and maybe, I don't know, just learn from it. And then I obviously at the top here, I got my legend for all these sort of abbreviations that I use if you want a better understanding of all the exercises that we're doing. So yeah, this is our next training cycle that we're gonna be doing. 5 weeks long, pretty long. It's gonna be intense. Like this is a jam-packed schedule. This is pretty packed. I'm excited to tackle this. It's like a lot of training, a lot of hard training, like so many different sessions. We got we got a mix of everything. And I haven't done endurance in a while too, so that's going to be hard as well. And then obviously some competitions to add into all of the craziness. So it should be fun and exciting, and I'm sure I'll be desperately needing the rest of the week at the end of this. So that's the program breakdown. Pretty cool stuff. Let's jump into today's episode and get started with day one. So here we are the next day. I recorded the training outline / breakdown the previous day. And so here I am after the day of training is concluded on our next day, which is September 30th. And now we have our first session of this next training cycle. Day one, we're going to start with a short session of bouldering, followed by our session 2 will be another session of bouldering, which is a little bit longer. And this is the exact same day that I did, like the exact same training day that I did after our last rest week when we had our training day at Studio Bloc. I just kind of did the same thing. I did like 2 super short sessions of bouldering. And if you remember back to that video, it was interesting that I found myself feeling like super normal on that training day, which was like quite bizarre. Usually I feel like quite terrible after a rest week. I'll just need like at least a day to get back into it. And then by day 2, I'll be feeling pretty good. So because I was feeling, and like to add on to that, during the rest week, we flew from Canada to Germany. So I had to do a 6-hour time shift, and I had a rest week, and then somehow my first day back I felt fine, which was super bizarre. I don't like that was like kind of unheard of for me. So I was kind of wondering like, well, I had the exact same amount of rest week, 6 days, which was the same as the previous one, and this time you take out the travel day, you'd think that it would be like even better than the last first day off of rest week back to training, but that wasn't quite the case. And so what I did, just to sort of hedge my bets, in case I was going to be feeling bad, was I chose to do my first boulder session at Boulderhaus in Darmstadt, which is where we are currently climbing. And that was because the last time we climbed here, I pretty much finished off most things in the gym. So there was no way that it would be really hard for me to get carried away throughout the session. Oftentimes, like on the first session back, there can be like a lot of new boulders because we haven't climbed in a while, and I might just go too crazy with my climbing and try things I shouldn't be. And like, even if I think my body can handle a certain thing, I might be being a bit over optimistic, and then my fingers, I'll just like crimp too hard on a hold and I might hurt myself. So by going to this gym, I only had a few boulders that I was able to try, and a lot of them were actually sort of slab and technical boulders because I had been here on a previous day, on a rest day to watch Maddie climb. So I knew that it was really kind of hard for me to get carried away. So it was a perfect gym for this session. So here we are climbing on their comp wall. These boulders are sort of mystery grades. Here, did you see what I just did? That's my tip of the day. That reminds me. So as you can see, I'm like putting in a clip in as well. This sort of double foot jump is something that Tamoa, I think, he basically invented this move like a few years ago. The first time I remember seeing it was this clip in China at a World Cup. I think it was like 2016, 17? I think 17. And yeah, this is something that I find myself doing every now and then. And so this is my tip of the day. I guess you could say it's Tamoa's tip of the day that I'm plagiarizing, but for like a kind of a run or a skip jump move like that, oftentimes you can play around with going with 2 feet, and it can give you way more, not only power and like height or distance for a dyno like that, but a lot more control actually. Like sometimes just jumping off 1 foot, you'll find like your body just like can't be as stable as sort of jumping out of a 2-foot position, because it's almost like you're jumping from the ground, right? Which is like kind of something I've talked about in the past. Anytime you're doing a dyno or something, if you can mimic the feeling of yourself running from the ground onto the wall, you often want to try and mimic that like while you're actually on the wall doing a dyno. And so, yeah, that's like sort of my tip of the day is any sort of these hopping and like skip jump moves. This won't work all the time, but sometimes the double foot bounce will be like a game changer, and it can turn a move from feeling quite hard into like super solid. There's a really cool example of this. Okay, you know what? I don't know if I have the clip yet, but if I do, I'm going to put it on the screen right here of a boulder that me and Maddie did a long time ago. I think it was like a boulder that I made up, and I was like able to do the move, but Maddie was really struggling with it. It was kind of like an anti-style move, and then I remembered like, oh, you know what? Let me try this like Tamoa double foot hop. And then we both, like, I did it even easier, and she like did the move, and it was night and day. It was crazy. So hopefully I can find the clip. I'm gonna go look after this and put it on the screen. But it was really cool how it worked. And so now we are trying this boulder. So like I said, the comp wall boulders here are like kind of mystery grades. These tape colors don't really mean anything. You just kind of have to infer what the difficulty is. So this boulder here, I had watched Maddie try this yesterday, as a part of her mock comp, and when I was watching her climb, I had a pretty good idea of the move that they were going for on this boulder. And I've been chatting with the head setter of this place. His name is Johnny. He's a really nice guy, and he's setting some cool stuff recently, and he's super awesome. He's been asking me if there's any boulders that I want specifically to work on, and so he's been putting up a couple of stuff that I've asked for. I got him to set a toe catch, which we don't try in this session, but I'll come back to the gym I'll just come back to the gym in a couple of days to try this boulder he set for me. And then he said he's going to set me a tricep intensive boulder as well, so that's super handy. It's always great when setters are helpful like that. And so I was talking to him about this boulder, and I said, yeah, Maddie was trying this for a mock comp, but she couldn't quite stick this first move. And as you can see, I'm trying this a bunch. I can't stick it. And I asked him if it was this move, this sort of foot hop thing that I had sort of read as I was watching Maddie try it. And he said that that was the case. It was exactly this move. And he said that he stuck the move after 20-something tries. And as soon as he did, it felt quite easy. And I definitely found myself being in a similar situation where I was yeah, okay, this is just going to take a lot of tries. I've actually felt pretty confident. When I was first walking with this boulder, I thought that I would be able to do it well because it sort of uses this full foot position that I find I've been really finding a lot of success with recently. I've talked about how I really love this full foot position where I use sort of the side of my foot and just sort of the inner edge, and I find I really get a lot of friction and a lot of stability in this position, especially in these shoes. I'm not sponsored by Scarpa, but I've talked about in the past, these Instinct VSRs is the only shoe that I really find success with this full foot position. When I was wearing the high ankles previously, I would never really do this. But after a bunch of tries, I finally stick that move. I found there were a lot of little subtleties I had to play around with. The biggest element of this move that I found really helped was to sort of ride the right foot for a little bit longer than you think. Instead of sort of jumping out of the hand position, you had to ride the no hands position for a little bit and then do a bit of a foot hop at the end. And the other key element was to have your right foot go as horizontal as possible. So the less of an arc you did, the better it was, and the better chance you had to stick the move. It was a really epic move. This boulder, 5 stars, 11 out of 10 stars, so good. And here you can see I'm repeating this ending. Maddie challenged me to try it without that second last hold and without that little foot hold. So I ended up doing this super cool sequence with a little heel catch to go to the finish move. And I think it actually ended up feeling easier than the other way around, because the other way you kind of have to use that other bad foot. Those are the sort of footholds with the dual text sort of around it, and then the little patch of texture in the middle. So that was probably a harder way of doing it, but it felt easier because I always feel confident when I get my heel hooks going. So yeah, this boulder session is 45 minutes long, and I am pretty much on track to hit that without any overtime. And I couldn't even go overtime if I wanted to, because this was sort of the only boulder I had left in the gym to try. No, there were a couple others, but they were crimpy, and I didn't want to get on crimps too much. And then there was this toe catch boulder that I was also talking about recently that Gianni said he set for me. But what he did is he said that I should text him before the next time I come into the gym to try this boulder. So, because right now he said he set it at sort of the commercial level, and if I text him before I head to the gym, he'll tweak it for to a harder version for me, which is super nice of him. And so I didn't get on this boulder today purposely because I told him that I'd be going later in the week, and so that's when I'll get him to tweak it for a nice hard version. Because I've mentioned in the past, and by the way, this wrapped up our session here at Boulderhaus Darmstadt, and then we're off to Studio Bloc for our second session of bouldering. So I mentioned in the past, if you can also think back to the Jackalope event, where I really identified a new weakness of mine, which are my toe catches. So the first boulder in finals was that move with just your standard sort of stand up, get a sloper, and then catch a toe. And I found myself really struggling with it, and I was only able to stick it once. And it was a pretty hard toe catch, but I think that I also just felt super insecure. And when I did it, I didn't even know how I did it or why it worked. I just sort of got lucky. And that's the worst thing you can do as a competitive climber is just rely on getting lucky to stick these sort of moves. And the way you really level up with your comp style movements is to understand why you can do moves. And not just be able to do them, but understand why you can do them so that way when you understand why you can do them, you'll feel confident approaching all sorts of variations of these movements, and instead of just being oh, I got lucky and stuck that toe catch before, hopefully I get lucky and stick this toe catch. I got to really start to understand the toe catches a bit better. So I was chatting to him one day when I was at the gym, and he's like, hey, what can I put up for you? And I said, toe catch, I need to work on that. So he put up a cool, it looks like a boulder with sort of a run and jump into a toe catch start, which is, can't wait to get on. Now here we are at Studio Bloc for our second session. And this session, I felt much stronger, just like I did in the last training day we had, the first day off of rest week, same sort of thing. All I need is sometimes it's just like one session to get going, and then by the second session I'll be feeling super good. And so now, speaking of setters setting boulders for me, I think I mentioned this a few episodes ago. I got a text from Eric, the head setter at this gym, Eric Heldman, about a week ago or something at this point, and he said that he sent me a project, and that got me so excited. I've kind of been waiting for him to sort of do this, set like a really hard boulder, just like a nice test piece, and this boulder is awesome. He definitely succeeded in setting something really hard to like challenge me really well, and so this was my first session on it. Thankfully, I was feeling good. Like a lot better than the first session where my fingers were needed to get going a bit more. You'll notice we just sort of stuck to technical boulders, and I tried to avoid like super physically hard boulders. And so this session we were feeling a lot better. My fingers felt good to go. I didn't feel weak this session, but what I noticed is I was actually like, my endurance was quite bad. I felt like I was getting flash pumped really easily, and I think that was just like sort of the day one off of rest week syndrome. And this boulder was not necessarily the best to try when you get pumped easily. I found myself, when I started giving more ground tries later, I was getting like super pumped, even just like a few moves in. And I could tell that I probably wasn't gonna be able to send it just because of this. But that being said, like my fingers and my grip strength felt fine. I felt like super like strong enough to do this boulder, but the endurance wasn't there. And even if I had like some pretty good power endurance levels going, this is just a long boulder. I think I counted as like 15, 16, 17 moves. And that's just already a lot of moves to do. So yeah, I was going to try my best to do this boulder, but I knew that this boulder was definitely going to be hard enough where I was probably not going to send it on this session, and I at least needed to spend some time just like practicing the moves and working on it. And you can see here in the middle, I'm trying a bunch of different sequences. I think on my first try, I like kind of went with my initial read of the boulder, which was to do a foot first sequence. And then like later today, after I sort of tried this boulder a bit, I messaged Eric and like showed him some videos of me and like just to see what he thought. And he was like, yeah, like he was definitely going for a foot first sequence, and that's what the setter was trying. But I think it was just like kind of how I was feeling on this day. My core also felt like a bit weak, and the foot first sequence didn't feel super solid. I bet if I was feeling a bit better, like here I'm trying to like swing my feet over, and it just doesn't feel good. And my other ways that I'm trying, I'm finding more success with. But yeah, he said that they were definitely going for a foot first sequence. I wasn't quite vibing with it on this day, and then I end up finding like, I think it's on this try. Maybe it's on this try or an attempt soon. I find actually a beta that works really well for me. And it's kind of like a more powerful, no, okay, it's not. It's not. You'll be able to tell. It's like quite obvious. It's a pretty crazy move. But yeah, I ended up finding a sequence that's like a bit more powerful, but it works well for me because it's also super efficient and it will help connect these middle moves a bit better. But yeah, I'm like so happy Eric sent me this super hard boulder. I wasn't able to send it in this session. I guess I haven't mentioned that. So we'll definitely, here you go. Here, I'm figuring out the sequence kind of like accidentally. I was actually setting up, I matched on this flat hold, and I was actually going to say, okay, let me try double clutching, because that was like another option. Eric hadn't told me that it was a foot first move at this point. That's kind of just what my initial read was. So I was like, maybe I had the foot first sequence wrong. Maybe it is just sort of like a double clutch. And so I was setting up to try that, and I was like, okay, no, that not today, maybe another day. So I'm like, well, okay, what else can I do? And then I accidentally found this like undercling where you undercling this flat hold, and it's like really bad from this angle. Like it is not meant to be grabbed like this. So I find I'm just almost like pressing my hand against it as much as I can. It's like sloper, and I'm like full crimping it as well. I'm like kind of just almost placing my hand there, and I have to flop my body into this position. And then as soon as I hit this next flat hold, then I can get the purchase off this right hand. And it ends up being like this super cool backwards jump move. Like what a superhero move in the middle of this boulder. This boulder is like, again, another like 11 out of 10 star boulder. And so here we go. This is a really good ground try of mine. I finally stick this hold from the bottom super desperately. It's a really crazy move where you don't feel solid when you stick it. Like I was kind of pumped at this point. I found myself, I kept pumping out when I was matching this flat hold. I was a bit pumped, but at the same time, I was like, okay, I'm falling. And then I stayed on. It's like one of those moves, which is super cool. And here I'm going for this really hard foot match where there's a lot of tension and my left hand fires off. I don't think I was going to be able to, I was probably going to fall. I was starting to pump out anyway, but I kind of definitely fell due to a dry fire on that attempt. But yeah, that ending sequence is really crazy. I
these holes are like quite bad, and you have to like pinch them really hard, and the foot is super slippery. That's like the hardest element of this boulder to do. It's actually like a decent hold, but the foot match is so precarious because the hold is so slippery. And then you'll notice when I tried the ending earlier, just on its own a while ago, yeah, you got to like sneak the toe hook out. It's pretty good. Here's a close up of the left hand that I'm going to at the beginning, and then that's the pinch that I'm jumping to. And then it's a funny story. The door to our apartment wasn't opening well this morning. And I was like sitting outside for like 5 minutes trying to open the door to our apartment. And I was like jamming the key over and over again, like, open this door. Why won't it open? Gosh. And I started getting so frustrated, and I was wiggling this key that I cut myself on the key, like on the sort of key ring. And it was in the absolute worst spot. So this pinch I'm jumping to over and over again, this like sharp thumb catch is cutting my finger over and over again. And it's like terrible. I'm like, oh my God, this is so bad. Why did I have to cut my thumb on the key ring of this day of all days? And so, yeah, I was really struggling with that during the session. If you actually notice, like maybe you can rewind a bit as well. Some of my earlier tries, I purposely am like jumping to this crimp and not pinching it because my thumb is really hurting. I'm like trying to just like drag the crimp without the thumb catch. But then I just start forcing myself to pinch it again because I need to in order to get this boulder. But yeah, like maybe it'll heal up. I'm going to come back. So that was my last try of the day. Another fall at the end there. I actually hit the crux move like with a decent amount of energy. I was like, oh, okay, that's nice. But then I was like, as soon as I got to this position, the pump like smacked me in the face and it like hit me out of nowhere. So yeah, we'll definitely be coming back in a couple days. We're going to go to Mannheim. That's what we had on the program, a boulder session at Mannheim in the next few days, but I got to come back here and get on this project again because that was too much fun. And then actually after this session, I also have like another, like that green slab we tried a while ago that I thought was impossible. I think I thought of some new beta to try. I didn't quite have enough time to do it in this session, but it'll be good. So the next boulder session we do, we'll come back here and then we will try the project again. I think I can send it. We'll also try the green slab. And so I had like 5 minutes left in the session after I finished that black boulder. I was quite exhausted, but because I wanted to sort of like send most of the boulders in this gym, if not all of them, as fast as possible so I could go try some other gyms, I decided to go a little bit over time for the session and just like try some of the more moderate looking boulders around the gym. I started with that black 7, which is pretty cool. Like that was actually a really cool finish, that super precarious press into that hold. I managed to get a flash of that. Now we're trying this blue boulder here, which is a 7. I guess you can't really see a tag anywhere. So yeah, this one is a 7. It's got this cool little undercling sequence in the middle. And yeah, I end up going like 10 minutes over time, an hour and 10 minutes, which isn't so bad because the morning session was only 45 minutes. So it wasn't really I wasn't really overdoing it today. I think I did a pretty good job of training today. And here, I think this is a good time to shout out our title sponsor for the COMPCLIMB series, which is Climbers Rock. It's Maddie and I's home gym back in Canada, and it's the best gym in the Toronto area. So if you want more information, you can check out the link in the description for that. Without their support, this series would not be possible. So thank you. And at this point, we're still just kind of going around doing some moderates. I think this wall. I think this wall might be becoming my favorite wall at Studio Bloc. This is like a super slab. This gray part of the wall is like quite slabbed. You can see this volume that I'm standing on here, again, with this full foot position that I've been preaching recently, like a bunch. I'm finding some more success with it here. But this volume looks so bad. But this gray part is definitely like quite super slabbed, is what I'm going to say. And it's like very slabbed. And I really like, they always set super creative boulders here. Boulders that are like kind of like deceptive to the eye. It looks like something that's impossible, but once you realize that the slab is like quite slabbed, that's how these boulders are doable. So yeah, we got a couple more 6s to do. And then also, I guess I keep saying I'm going to mention this at some point in the videos. I keep forgetting. But, throughout all these videos, obviously we do like a bunch of different sessions and whatnot. And obviously some of them might be more interesting than others to some people. So I got like the timestamps in the video. If you kind of like just scroll to like the YouTube bar, you can see like the different sections of the videos. And the timestamps are also in the description if you just want to sort of jump around in the video and find your favorite session of the bouldering. Or find your favorite session, whether that be like bouldering or canvassing or whatnot. And I was also thinking about this, as we're like starting this new training cycle, obviously day 2 is going to be endurance and a workout. And it's interesting, the workouts, like every now and then we'll be incorporating like new exercises, obviously. And that, like, we actually have some new exercises on this workout cycle that I think are going to be quite interesting. But after you've seen them a couple times, like maybe that's like not as interesting. So something I'm actually going to start doing, I'm sure I'll like mention this again tomorrow when we do it, is during our workout, So I've been filming myself training for like years and years, just sort of like in portrait mode, just so I can have it for myself to like remember boulders or like obviously like learn from watching myself and like critique my form and whatnot and like kind of see how my body moves. And honestly, I think filming yourself is one of the best ways to get better at climbing. Just like being able to know what your body looks like when it's doing it, when you feel yourself doing a move. I think that's actually like a pretty big game changer. And I found myself making a lot of progress with my movement when I started filming myself and watching myself a lot. So I've got like 3 years worth of videos. And some of them are like some super cool boulders that I did at my home gym or boulders where I really learned a lot. And on these days where I'm doing like a workout in endurance, I'm not necessarily going to have a tip of the day to sort of talk about because we're just, doing a workout and then doing like 4x4s. So I'm actually going to include probably some clips as a picture-in-picture of like old boulders that I can chat about while we're doing our workouts. Probably not for endurance because endurance is a bit more engaging, I think, for watching. But for the workout, at least, I think that's what I'll do is kind of have some picture-in-picture of like old boulders I've done in the past few years, and maybe I can go and find some like interesting tips of the days from these boulders as well. So I think that'll be cool because I always want to like, of course, like this is like sort of my just natural training, and that's sort of like the idea of what I'm showing, like just the training that I do all the time. But like as we're like sort of growing as a channel, I'm always going to try and like optimize for you viewers as well and like make sure things are still interesting. So yeah, I think that'll be pretty fun. So tomorrow we're going to do our workout, got some new exercises, and we're going to do endurance for the first time. So tune in for that. Insert catchy outro to the video here.